Hello, 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 and welcome, welcome, welcome to the Settle for More podcast. This is our 10th episode, and I'm super excited that you are taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me today and to join me. So, thank you so much for doing that. I'm your host, Nicole Wright, and I have created this space just for you. Yeah, you, the woman who is ready, so ready to walk out on her fears, step into her dreams, and own her power by shifting her mindset from feeling not enough to becoming more than enough. And in doing that, you'll be creating a purposeful and fabulous life whilst settling for more. So, today in particular, I wanted to talk with you about something that will impact or affect each and every one of us at some point in our life, and that is the feeling of rejection. So, rejection hurts, right? So, you go for something, you didn't get it, you feel rejected, you're hurt. You're in a relationship, it's no longer working out, you feel rejected, you're hurt. You apply for a job, you got the letter or you got the email that you were not a candidate, you feel rejected, you're hurt. I get it. Rejection hurts. And so the thing about rejection is that it doesn't even matter who it's from, whether it's from family, from friends, from coworker, from a new company. When we experience rejection, you actually physically feel it. It hits us right in the heart. And that is the control center of all our emotions, right? So you often get this sense that, something is wrong, and you may wonder, what is wrong with me? And it's hard sometimes to bounce back from what we want to call a setback or what we want to call rejection. And so we might begin pulling ourselves apart with a lot of self-criticism. What I want you to understand today is that rejection can be one of your greatest teachers, because rejection also has a way of teaching us and redirecting us into the path that is right for us, ultimately making our lives better. So sometimes rejection is a very, very, very clear message that you're not meant to be doing something. So when you feel rejection, look for your redirection and open yourself to opportunities that could be right in front of your eyes. But because you're so busy, criticizing yourself or being sad or being depressed, you don't see the opportunities. So every time I thought that I was being rejected from something good, what I've come to realize is that I was actually being redirected to something that's better. So over the years, I've really learned to look at rejection differently. Actually, many of my greatest blessings have actually come out of what I perceived as rejection at the time. And I must admit that they've been painful experiences. But then again, I've always been one to learn more through pain than through pleasure, because I think for me, pain really sets me into a place where I do a lot of introspection and a lot of thinking as to what really happened, what could I have done differently. And as a coach, one of the things I've learned to do is to take accountability. So when I was younger, I faced rejection daily, right? I mean, I grew up in a society that they would tease you, that bullying wasn't even labeled as bullying. And so what happened is that I was bullied so many times and I was rejected simply for just being me. But that's for another podcast, right? Um, and then the older I got, I really experienced rejection around relationships. Well, a number of times the older I got. And there was a period when I was so afraid of rejection that I would really cling to friendships and cling to relationships that were ended and that were no longer serving me, right? And intuitively, like deep down, I knew they were not healthy for me. The great thing about life is that life has a way sometimes, if you're open to the blessings that God and the universe has for you, life has a way of really giving you the things that you want. So for me, unsurprisingly, some of these relationships just died out. This, of course, really helped me to be able to validate my beliefs that I was worthy, right? And I stopped thinking that, I would always be rejected or I was unworthy. What it made me realize is that sometimes the things that you're holding on to are the very things that are preventing you or preventing the blessings from flowing into your life, into your space, because they're occupying space, right? So today, what I want to encourage you to do is to examine times, examine situations, examine experiences you've had where you felt a sense of rejection. And have you taken the time to look at it as redirection? It is God's way or the universe way of saying, this is not for you, or not this, or something better. So sometimes now, when I'm asking for things, things that I really desire, things that I think could take me to the next level, my prayer is this, oh God, or something better. Because what I do know is that if this thing doesn't work out, then something else is in store for me, right? As I got further into my career of training and coaching, there were some jobs that I thought was actually, the job or the perfect job or an ideal job for me. And when I was younger, I wanted to get into radio so badly. Like it was my dream. Like I would drop everything else, right? I would sell the last clothes on my back just to be in radio. And I remember going to a particular radio station for three different interviews. The first time I went, I don't remember what I was told. The second time I was told that I needed to work on my diction. And I left the studio and I went to register for a course in voice and speech delivery. I went back and I didn't get the job, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And that sense of rejection that I got, because every time I would apply or every time I would show up for an interview, in my mind I'm thinking, I'm going to get this job. I've nailed it. This is what I want. And I'm so going to have it because I've done everything that I needed to do to get it. Needless to say, I wasn't tired, but what happened was that I recognized that this is something that I want, and this is probably not the path for me for the world to hear my voice or for me to use my voice to serve the world. And so what I did when I finished my getting certified in voice and speech delivery, I actually sat in my room one day, and I don't know if you remember those old cassette recorders, and I created a radio segment. I read the news, I did an ad, there was a topic I spoke about. I was able to visualize who my audience was, and I had a beautiful conversation with them. I made maybe 12 copies of this cassette, right? Because it was a double decker, I think. So I was able to do my original and then make several copies. And the following day, I didn't even have a car. I took a cab around town. I walked to some of the places and I dropped it off at a lot of advertising agencies. Within weeks, I was getting so many different calls. I was turning people down. And that happened as a result of me being rejected from working on air. So I became the voice of several large companies back home in Jamaica. I was their voice for huge promotions, to the point where I had to be saying no to their competitors, and that led to bigger things where I was hosting events, I was hosting shows, I was meeting a lot of people, and eventually I was on radio. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes the opportunities that you see for yourself, right, is not as big as the opportunities that the universe has in store for you. So needless to say, there have been times in my career when I've been rejected and I really didn't get the job that I'd hoped for, right? Sometimes though, what you need to understand is that it's not even about you, right? Because for me, finally it was like a light bulb went on, right? The things that were happening to me, I recognized were happening for a reason, and they were all perfectly timed. So, what I began to do was to really spin the way that I viewed rejection. I started to see it as an ability to reassess and to become more acquainted with different parts of myself. In some situations, I was able to see that maybe this is not the right path for me, or this is not the right person for me, or if I still feel like I needed to be there, I will, or to be in that particular relationship, or to be in that space, I was able to look within and see where I needed to improve in order to make it happen, as I did with the radio station, right? So sometimes when you do this, and for me, my perspective became clearer. Every job that I was denied for opened the door for something new and better opportunities. Every relationship, as painful as it was, that hurt me, led me to really deciding and assessing and accepting the things that I wanted. Every mistake that I made was able to guide me to look within. I was able to learn, I was able to grow, I was able to ultimately make changes. I was able to forgive myself for not knowing what I did not know until I learned it. I actually found myself thanking all of the people and all of the places that rejected me. Sometimes when you experience rejection, you start feeling as though you're not enough. You start feeling as though you're not worthy. But based on where I am in my life now, I am so grateful for all the rejections I had that redirected me to another path, because this led me on a journey, and this led me to the process of being the person that I am today. A woman who operates with integrity, a woman who operates with grace, with resilience and strength, right? I want to warn you though that this epiphany did not happen overnight. What I began to do was slowly I began to see my perceptions and my beliefs were no longer serving me. So having the feelings of not being good enough, having the feeling of not being pretty enough, not being smart enough, having the feeling of insufficiency. I recognize that these ideas, these perceptions, and these beliefs, they were not serving me. And so what I had to do, I had to start looking at situations differently. And I began searching for the blessings in disguise. I know it sounds easier said than done, but there are some tools that I'm going to talk about. You know me, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach, so I have to be able to give you what you need. And I'm going to be just talking about some steps or some strategies that you can implement if you're ever feeling rejected. And if you hear that inner critic, I want you to help you to quiet that inner critic that shows up during the time of distress. So the first thing I want you to be able to do is to treat yourself with compassion. Resist the internal dialogue saying, and it's that voice inside of you that's telling you that you deserve bad things because of whatever things you didn't do or whatever things you did in the past. Sometimes we think when things are not working for us, it's God's way of punishing us. I want you to start removing those thoughts or those words from your vocab, because research also shows that negative self-talk is very destructive, not to mention ineffective. So if we believe that we deserve bad things, what you're going to start doing, you will start to attract people and things that will validate that belief. Because what we feel on the inside really manifests on the outside. So I want you to change that internal dialogue that you're having. What we need to do is to really work on responding to our inner critic with kindness and compassion. And a helpful way of doing that is really communicating with yourself like a dear friend, right? So you'll talk to yourself as you would, or you'll console yourself as you would a dear friend. I remember when my niece went through a job denial, I encouraged her to trust that new opportunities would evolve. I also acknowledge her for her courage, for just showing up and for just allowing herself to be interviewed. That in and of itself is an opportunity. right? I would never have said to her, "You're so hopeless and you should give up." So it's the same thing. If I'm not going to say that to her, then I'm not going to say that to me. When I have friends or clients who've gone through terrible breakups or, relationships that ended in a way that was painful, I've always done my best to remind them that they're worthy of love and to help them to find lessons in the situation. I wouldn't have said to them, "Hey, it's your fault and something is wrong with you and you don't deserve anything better." And it's the same thing that I want you to apply to yourself, right? Because it begins with self leadership, self love. So treat yourself with compassion. I want you to think about rejection as getting outside of your comfort zone. And outside of your comfort zone is where all the magic happens, right? So if we never experience rejection, we're probably not taking many chances and therefore not making many changes, right? When we get rejected, we can at least be comforted in knowing that I was brave enough, that you were brave enough to take the risk. And these risks are going to help you to better understand who you are as an individual and where you're going. Moreover, they may also help you to build strength and also to develop skills and deal with adversities that are inevitable in life, right? So it's going to help you to be a little bit more resilient. For heaven's sake, my gem, do not let rejection define you. Oftentimes, when we're faced with rejection, we tend to personalize it. We make the event of the rejection far more than the event itself. So, just one aspect of the rejection, we've turned that into the whole entire movie, right? We begin to identify with it, and we tend to see it as a failure, right? And then we're seeing the whole thing as a failure, which means that you're going to see yourself as a failure. Do not allow rejection to define you. It is extremely important for you to master the art of separating what happened from who we are. Rejection is not always personal. Oftentimes, when someone rejects us, sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with us, or it's nothing to do with faults on our part. What it means is that we were just not a good fit for that person, for the job, or for the opportunity. Let me take a sip of my tea here. If you start to look at rejection and you start to attach a meaning to rejection that says that you're unworthy or you're unlovable, it is likely because the rejection is triggering an existing belief that you formed earlier in life. And I want you to start examining that, right? So ask yourself, what thoughts is this particular experience triggering for me, right? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this something that I haven't dealt with, right? And the triggering of an existing belief can be good if you choose to examine it in a way that says, if I'm at this point right now and it's triggering something, maybe this is something I need to address, or better yet, something I need to release. Do not fall into the trap of defining your worth with external things. So, after patterns of rejection, examine if you're meeting yourself with compassion or with shame and guilt in an attempt to force yourself into make changes. So you want to make sure that you're not ashamed and you're not feeling guilty. So for me personally, and when I have sessions, whether it be my masterminds or with my coaching clients, what I want to encourage you to do is to work consciously on being mindful of your thoughts and shifting them to be more supportive. I have learned, right, that failure is just an event, but is not about me as a person. So if I'm not considered for the job, if a relationship has ended, if a friendship has ended, if I did not get an opportunity, that's all it is. It does not define who I am. It does not define my abilities. It does not define my skills. As a matter of fact, it does not define me at all. right? Furthermore, I've learned and I've practiced, and I'm a work in progress, my gems. So I continue to practice trusting that things will work out in the right time. So if it's not working out for me right now, I believe that the time isn't right, and I believe that whatever I desire will come to me in divine time. I've also declared divine order in my life. So it means that everything is operating for me in divine order. What I want you to also do is to focus less on the rejection. So we could easily focus on what we've lost when we experience rejection. However, my gem, it is more useful to ask yourself, what have I gained? This way you can determine what have you learned from the entire experience. So rather than beating ourselves up or even, feeling down or feeling depressed, right? You can actually turn your adversity into self growth and self exploration. So ask yourself, what have I learned? When I was rejected from the radio station, the experience I gained was that I was able to experience sitting in a studio, experiencing what it feels like, because that's how the interview was done. I had a face to face, and then I had to go in and I had to read because they wanted to get the clarity and all that in the tone, modulation, and all that in my voice. But I gained that experience. So I want you to start looking at, if you went for a job and you didn't get the job, what did you learn? Are you able to now find the lesson or the opportunity in the fact that you got up, you showed up on time, you were able to answer certain questions, right? So it prepares you for your next interview, so to speak. So I want you to start looking at rejection as redirections and opportunities for growth, opportunities for development. You get the chance to learn or to experience something that you would have never experienced before, right? Practice looking inside and identify what you may need to work on. So if I've begun to see that I am more capable of handling rejection or handling loss that I've credited myself for. I now use rejection as an opportunity to, number one, humble myself, to number two, do some introspection, but also to move forward with wisdom as to how I could do things differently. It has also helped me personally to gain a relationship with myself. So I have learned to love the woman that I am, and I've learned to do that unconditionally. In doing that, what I'm doing is attracting real, genuine, authentic relationships. I've also learned to value, respect, and love me now, and to love the people that I have in my space a little bit more unconditionally. Right? Our thoughts have strong impact on our emotions, and our emotions in turn have strong impact on our decisions and the behaviors that we tend to demonstrate. So if you find yourself experiencing failure or rejection, ask yourself, what is your interpretation of the situation? What meaning are you attaching to the event? Right? If you have a tendency towards negative self-talk, you will find that your energy is draining more quickly, and this will eventually take you away from the things that you find important. And when you find that you're in battle with yourself, you cannot possibly be present for others, right? I want you to work on creating a new belief about the situation. On the surface, you may have lost something, but deep down, you're gaining a better understanding of who you are. Train your brain, my gem, to look for the blessing and not the curse. Because I personally believe that I'm always protected. And if you don't believe in a higher power, you could choose to understand rejection as something that's bad. But if you do believe in a higher power, you can see rejection as redirection. Sometimes it's repositioning. Sometimes you're being detoured out of something that may have been potentially explosive and would not have worked out in your favor. For me personally, I trust that the universe and all things are happening as they should for my highest good. It is crucial for me to have faith in other to be with a sense of peace. I feel as well that we all yearn in life to have a sense of peace, to have a sense of belonging. And to be completely honest, I'm extremely grateful for not working out, and getting all worked up. So I'm not really working out the way um I used to, or really working on things the way I used to. If something didn't work out, I kept hitting on it, hitting on it, hitting on it because I felt so bad because I was rejected. Right now, I relax and I let things work the way that they should. Because one of the things I know is that I was born for success. I was born to have an amazing life. I was born to experience greatness. I also know that redirection, for me, sometimes it's repositioning and not necessarily a bad thing, right? So I want you to know that you deserve the best. And sometimes when you're redirected, it's the universe way of telling you, hey, settle for more.